Yo, so guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to incredible maps of the US that will change the way you see the country. This video just popped up in my feed. I remember that I used to do like videos like this. I've done a few videos like this in the past, like maybe like 3 or 4, like maps that are like stats. So like maybe the state's favorite fast food restaurant or whatever. I mean, we're gonna see in this video. I'm just explaining something that will just be seen in the video. But yeah, I have done videos like this in the past, and I remember I really enjoyed them because I'm just weird. I like seeing stats. It's something that I've always just enjoyed seeing, even when I was younger. It's just something that always like interests me. And yeah, like I said, I just saw this pop up and I thought it could be another fun reaction. But yeah, that's about it really. Let's just get into this one. Hopefully you're all doing well. And yeah, let's just check this video out. I'm interested to see what I hope it is different sort of stats as well, like different maps from what I've seen before. There's probably going to be a few of the same ones here and there, but I like seeing newer ones that I haven't sort of seen that will maybe change my perspective on certain things. But yeah, let's just get into it.
You gotta love maps. Honestly, who doesn't? They're a great way to better understand the world we live in. If you're subscribed to this channel, I bet, like me, you're a big fan of maps. So in this video, just like the one I made a couple months ago, I'm going to take you through a few of my favorite maps. Mostly the US, but some of the world as well.
Okay.
To hopefully give you a better sense of the similarities and differences between various parts of the country and the world. Hello and welcome to That Is Interesting. I'm your host Carter. Today, incredible maps of the US that will change the way you see the country. The first map I'll discuss is called nativeland.ca. It's an incredibly comprehensive interactive map depicting the world in terms of the indigenous people who inhabited specific regions prior to their colonization.
Oh, wow.
The map is constantly being added to and expanded and currently shows Canada, the US, Mexico, Central America,
Bro, look at
Caribbean,
all the different ones
Australia,
in the US
and
and like
New
Canada, or in North America and South America. I mean, you've got like Europe, and it's just like one thing, and there's a few spread out like on like Scandinavia and like Russia and kind of thing. But Europe's just boring, man. You go to the US, and you've got all these different I forgot what it's called.
The map is
Indigenous
constantly
people.
being added to and expanded and currently shows Canada, the US, Mexico, Central America, the Caribbean, Australia, and New Zealand, parts of the Pacific like Hawaii, Guam, the Northern Marianas, the Ryukyu Islands, and the Kuril Islands, Arctic regions like Greenland, Scandinavia, and parts of Russia, and much of South America, which is still being put together. If you've seen any videos in the US Explained, a series where I make a video on each state, territory, and federal district in the country, you might recognize this interactive map, which I've used to determine the indigenous peoples whose homeland sits in each state. It includes a button to turn on labels, which overlap the map with modern political boundaries, cities, and towns. This can be a helpful way to find where you live and learn more about the native people whose ancestral land you reside in. Nativeland.ca is a very interesting map that I definitely recommend you check out. Next up is a series of maps created by Hungarian mapmaker Grasshopper Geography.
Is this to do with like rivers or like mountains? Wait, what's this gonna be?
It splits the world up into different watersheds, basins in which all precipitation eventually drains to the same place. These are
Look at this big ass pink one. This is like bigger than all the other ones combined, pretty much. That's wild.
just fascinating to look at. You can see that coastal areas are split into tons of tiny watersheds, usually smaller creeks that start in areas not far from the sea, whereas inland, single watersheds like that of the Mississippi can take up vast swaths of land. In drier, more mountainous areas, some valleys may be completely cut off from the ocean and not receive enough rainfall to fill up into lakes that then get large enough to overflow, creating what are known as endorheic basins, areas where rivers flow into lakes that then go nowhere, with water leaving through evaporation in the hot desert sun. You can see plenty of these in hot desert areas like Nevada and much of the US's Mountain West. In the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, a large inland section is home to a bunch of self-contained watersheds
Look how many
as
there
well,
are there.
despite it being flat and having plenty of rain, unlike other mountainous desert areas where that is not the case. I'm guessing that this is due to the presence of cenotes, which are essentially sinkholes that have filled up with water and are super common in the region.
What the fuck? These are sinkholes that have just turned into like sort of, well, like you just said, but these look like the sort of things that like I see in like movies or like, you know, like of like the typical sort of American movies or Mexican movies or whatever you want to say, like where they're jumping into these kind of sinkhole things. But like the fact that this was off a sinkhole and it's obviously formed into like what it is now, it looks like unreal, like with all the plants going around it and stuff. Is there any chances of like these bits collapsing, or are they like sturdy? Because I guess there is obviously opportunity for more of it to collapse as well, but...
Many are located in an enormous ring, marking the edge of the Chicxulub crater, the location where the meteor that brought an end to the dinosaurs struck the Earth.
Oh, wow.
There are plenty of incredible watershed maps to see here. The outback of Australia is dotted with too many self-contained evaporation basins to count, including some that sit right next to rivers. I'm also very curious about what's going on right here, so if anyone from Australia knows why the watersheds in this section are all in straight lines, leave a comment below to let me know.
The outback is
The
nuts,
Sahara
bro.
too looks really impressive on this
Look
map,
at this.
as does Greenland, which due to the presence of its vast ice sheet, only the outline of is visible. There are plenty of places to see these watershed maps. I found them on the Smithsonian magazine, and I definitely encourage you to check them out. The next map is made by Business Insider, and it is pretty mind-blowing. It shows the US broken down by county, but the blue...
There's Alaska here and Hawaii. Obviously I can't show it. I can just move it quickly. Just for those people who want to see it. Bang. So there's Alaska and Hawaii just there. Just get a quick look at that. Let's get back in.
Blue counties that have been selected are home to half of the country's population, and the gray counties home to another half. This is just a fascinating way to visualize the sheer differences in population density between population.
Let me hear this one again.
Mind-blowing. It shows the US broken down by county, but the blue counties that have been selected are home to half of the country's population. And
I've looked at something like this kind of in a sense of something similar to this before, and it's ridiculous, man. How the blue ones are equal to the grey ones, it's just unreal. It shows the power of cities, though, doesn't it?
The grey counties home to
the populations of cities, sure.
This is just a fascinating way to visualize the sheer differences in population density between urban and rural areas. Even though two counties...
Do you reckon all these blue ones combined would equal to the size of the UK? Probably actually be bigger, to be honest, because I know California's a lot bigger than the UK. And California's nearly 1/3, and you've got all these other ones as well.
They take up the same amount of land. Some may be home to only a couple hundred residents, while others may be home to millions. If you live in the US, take a look at this map. I imagine many of you live in one of the 146 highlighted counties, which range from Los Angeles County in California, home to a stunning 10 million residents, to Williamson County, Texas, a suburban county to the north of Austin, home to almost 600,000. Leave a comment below if you live in one of the highlighted counties, and be sure to check out this map. This map, which I found on Vivid Maps, depicts the counties of the US broken down by the most common country or ethnic group the ancestors of its residents were part of.
So in Alaska, you've got German, you've got local native, and you've got, what's that? Filipino, I think, and then a bit of English. In Hawaii, you've got the local native, Filipino. Is that Filipino again? There's a lot of Filipino, isn't there? Wait, what the heck? In those two states especially. And then you've got, I think, Japanese as well.
This is interesting because it shows clear patterns in how immigrants settled in the United States, often choosing to live alongside people from the same country who spoke the same language. In addition, the population patterns of some ethnic groups in the US were a result of force. Black Americans, many of whose ancestors were forcibly enslaved and brought to the country in chains, are today the predominant ancestry group across many counties of the southeastern US, where the evil practice of slavery was most prevalent, as well as in many northern cities, where millions fled during the Great Migration, moving north to escape the persecution of the Jim Crow South.
It's kind of interesting to me how you've got like the African American sort of domination here, then you've got like the Irish sort of line, and then you've got like the Germans. It's like sort of split. Obviously there's bits here and there that aren't split, but in general, you've got the Mexican sort of domination here. You've got the English there. It's so weird how the English sort of is in this area, also it's here, but that's sort of more expected because it's closer to England. But here, all the way like at the west side,
and seek better job opportunities that opened up during the World Wars. In the western U.S., many counties are majority Native American. For the most part, these are locations of reservations, such as the Navajo Nation in the Southwest. But you'll notice that there are only 1 or 2 such majority indigenous counties in the eastern U.S. Most native people that survived the spread of diseases brought from Europe like smallpox, as well as the genocidal practices of colonial expansion, were often forced west, such as the Cherokee, who make up the largest ancestral group in several Oklahoma counties, but whose homeland is located in the southeastern part of the country, in states like Georgia. In terms of immigrant groups, you can see that many residents of the northern United States, especially in the Midwest, are descendants of German immigrants.
See, that's crazy.
In fact, German Americans make up the largest ancestry group overall in the country, 16.4%. In the Southwest and Mountain West, residents of many counties are descendants of immigrants from Mexico, and descendants of Irish immigrants inhabit parts of the South alongside northeastern areas like Massachusetts and upstate New York. There's also one county way out in Montana that I'd be interested in knowing the story behind. For a country dominated by the English language, you'll probably be surprised to see that in few parts of the country are most people descended from English immigrants, mostly the upper New England states and parts of Utah and Idaho, due to the fact that most Mormons, members of the LDS Church, are of English descent. French ancestry is dominant in the rural parts of upper New England that border Quebec, as well as in parts of Louisiana, which has a long French history. Many descendants of Italian immigrants live in the New York metro area, and many people in the rural upper Midwest trace their ancestry to immigrants from Norway. In San Francisco,
if you're watching this video and you sort of know your ancestry and like your sort of where your family or your ancestors initially came from, let me know down below, because I'd be interested in seeing like sort of what, like, if this sort of is similar with you, like maybe the state or the exact sort of square or whatever you want to call it, the exact county that you're from is the sort of colour that your sort of family descend from. Like that, I'd be interested to know that. Actually, that would be quite cool to see.
Francisco, which acted as the historic gateway to immigration from East Asia, more residents have ancestors from China than any other country. And many people in other counties along the Pacific coast trace their ancestry to immigrants from other Asian nations.
This little dot for China, what the hell? God damn.
Such as Japan and Hawaii, and the Philippines and Hawaii and Alaska. Residents of Miami-Dade County in Florida are predominantly of Cuban descent, and residents of another county in Florida are primarily Puerto Rican. Luzerne County in Pennsylvania is the only mostly Polish-American county in the country, and Bristol County in Massachusetts is the only mainly Portuguese-American one. You can also find some counties sprinkled throughout the Midwest where most people's ancestors came from the Netherlands. And I've seen other maps that show the Upper Peninsula of Michigan as having a large Finnish-American population. This map is a fascinating way to visualize how immigrants to the U.S. often settled and continue to settle near one another, and the impact these different communities have had on shaping the country we know today. Also, just for fun, this map made by Maptitude does the exact same thing, but depicts it using flags, so it is less detailed but creates an interesting visual element. It was shared on my Discord server, so if you're interested in seeing more fascinating maps like the ones I'm showing in this video, then please feel free to join. I'll put the link in the description. The next map builds off of the last one. It's an interactive map made by the Washington Post that shows every county in the country in which at least 10% of households speak a language other than English at home. Spanish is most common, but other areas have large populations that speak indigenous languages, along with French, Chinese, German, and other languages at home. It does a great job depicting the various linguistic communities in the U.S., and serves as a strong reminder that despite the prevalence of English in public life, the United States is very much a multilingual country.
It really
The
is.
final map I'll discuss in this video is called an extremely detailed map of the 2020.
The US is considered the most sort of diverse country in the world, right? Because when you look at stuff like this, it just makes, again, I have looked at maps somewhat similar to this before, and I sort of did know that I did learn how diverse the US truly was, but again, this just re-emphasizes just how diverse it is, and it's just mad. It has to be the most like diverse country. I know the UK is diverse, especially in like cities like London, but not the whole of the UK. Did I say the US? Also, I'm gonna say England because there's probably like diverse cities like in Scotland and stuff. I don't know much about that, but yeah, like, but then there's also areas in the UK where like it isn't as diverse. I feel like the US is a lot more sort of split like that, just a lot more diverse in the sort of lesser areas or lesser populated areas, but again, I could be completely wrong.
Election, made by the New York Times. It's a follow-up to a map I discussed in my Fascinating Maps video, which did the same for the 2016 election. Just like the map in that video, this map shows how the country voted down to the last precinct. This makes it far more detailed than other electoral maps, which typically show voting patterns by state or even county. Just as with last time, maps like this can be pretty misleading. There's a lot of red, far more than there is blue on the map, but in reality there are pretty similar numbers of Republicans and Democrats in the country, and elections rarely ever are a landslide, especially in the popular vote. On top of that, 2020 of course saw Biden, the Democratic Party's nominee, win the presidency. The reason that so much land on the map is colored red is due to the urban-rural divide that plays a major role in U.S. politics, with voters in cities typically supporting Democrats and voters in rural areas usually supporting Republicans.
See, the split is insane.
Precincts in rural areas are often home to a couple hundred voters and tend to vote red. Move into a city, however, and the precincts become not only smaller but bluer and are usually home to a similar amount, if not more, of voters. Long story short, while there are about even numbers of Democrats and Republicans in the US, Democrats tend to live in more densely populated areas, whereas Republicans tend to live in more sparsely populated ones. There are some maps that take that into account, such as this one, which warps the physical size of states so they are proportional to their population, or this one, which shows...
Wait, let's just see this. This is insane. Imagine the US was shaped like this. What the hell is going on
population, or this one, which shows 1 dot per vote. In the last maps video, I focused on areas that did not follow the urban-rural divide, and in this one, I'll focus instead on the potential long-term political trends that this map shows. First off, a couple things about this map. One, as of now, it's only 81% complete. I don't blame them. Props to whoever's working on this, because making a map this detailed looks incredibly difficult. But as time goes on, they've been able to fill in more and more, and we can still get a lot from what there is already. It's also generally more user-friendly than the last one. When hovering over counties or precincts, it calculates and displays for you the margins the respective winner won each by, which is just a nice touch. In addition, it contains a button that allows you to toggle between it and another map, one which has calculated the differences in each precinct between 2020 and 2016, and shows whether that specific precinct or county has trended either more Republican or more Democratic between the two elections. This means that on this change from 2016 map, places that appear red, for example, may not have actually had a majority of voters vote Republican, just more than in the last election. If you want an idea of how certain parts of the country are trending politically, this can be a useful tool. Often, people will just look at which states flipped in an election, and states usually flip every year, but this gets far more specific and shows trends even in states that did not flip. For a look at how this map should appear if there is really no change between elections, let's take a look at rural Kansas. Some precincts got redder, some got bluer, but these appear pretty haphazard and random. Other areas of the country, though, had clear trends moving in one direction or another. Much was made after the election of Trump's improvement among Latino voters, and indeed, through this map, you can see that areas with large Latino populations, such as Los Angeles, grew significantly redder, even though in the case of LA, it barely made a dent. Other areas home to many Latino Americans, such as South Texas and the Miami area, also turned redder, turning two Democratic strongholds into pretty competitive areas. The results in Miami are particularly striking. For Democrats to win such a major urban area, places where the party typically does best, by a relatively slim margin of just 7%, was quite a surprise, and likely helped cost Biden the state of Florida. Trump also appears to have further solidified the Republican grip on the states of Utah and Arkansas. However, other than Miami, Biden did about as well as Democrats typically do in major cities, and more than made up for losses elsewhere with decisive wins in the suburbs. If you look at a lot of the cities on this map, you can see what looks sort of like a donut surrounding them. This is a result of the cities themselves getting either slightly bluer, redder, or staying about the same compared to 2016, while the suburbs got significantly bluer, creating a wide blue ring around many of them. This blue suburban donut appears around nearly every city on this map, and is even more consequential because suburbs are typically very politically competitive. If you look at a state like Georgia, which saw Biden win a narrow surprise victory, this is extremely evident in Metro Atlanta. While he may not have picked up every suburban county, candidates need to win states, not counties. So every county and precinct where Democrats improved contributed to a win. If you look at major metro areas in the 5 states Biden flipped, Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, he outperformed Hillary Clinton's margins in the suburbs each time. Another interesting trend is that the Northeast became solidly more blue. The region is already a Democratic stronghold, so it won't do much but make the state safer for Democrats, but it's interesting nonetheless. Finally, there's been lots of talk of Texas flipping for the Democrats sometime in the future, and while Republicans did better in 2020 in South Texas, other parts of the state, located around the edges of many of its major cities, did get bluer, which in my opinion will make it an interesting state to watch. If you're interested in US geography, which if you watched this far it would seem that you are, I have a series called the US Explained, where I make an in-depth video on the geography, history, and culture of each state, territory, and federal district.
This could be a banger of a series to look at. If you want me to look at this, please, this sounds interesting. Each state sort of explained like the politics and whatever behind it.
In the United States. If you're more interested in international geography, I have plenty of videos on those topics as well. Also, please check out the TII store where you can purchase some great That Is Interesting merchandise and consider joining my page.
Mate, shout out to him. Honestly, shout out to him. And if you haven't already, check this guy's channel out. I'm going to subscribe here. I really like this video. His content seems really interesting. And for people who like sort of watch my reactions, I feel like a lot of people would enjoy these sorts of videos as well. Those weird straight watersheds in Australia are in the Simpson Desert, which is a massive area of sand dunes which run northwest to southeast for hundreds of kilometers. So all those straight watersheds are rivers which flow between these linear and sand dunes when it rains. I see. Don't really understand still, but the Irish county in Montana is home to but Montana 25% Irish immigrant miners in the 1900s. On St. Patrick's Day, some streets literally run green, so I've been told. I'm here, Polish descent from Luzerne County. I was born in Grey County and I live in a different Grey County. I'm here representing Santa Clara County. This video needs a million views. Yeah, this video was really good, but yeah, let me know your thoughts on this. Again, I asked the question like, if you're from the counties, like what, like the counties, the map that showed like the most sort of descendants from certain countries in a certain county. Tell me if you're from the same country as the map sort of suggested the majorities were. And if not, just let me know where you're from in the US, like where you initially sort of come from, and also where you're from, like where your family is from, like how do I say it? Your family history, basically, like where your family originates from, but also where you are from in the US. It's just, I find it interesting seeing this kind of stuff. But hopefully you enjoyed this one. Until next time, like, subscribe.